What's up, guys and gals? Welcome back to the Nerd Castle. Today, in the world of indie games, we're going to be taking a second look at a title called Lost Fleet. We covered this one about last year when it released into early access, and this was a game with a very promising art style and a very interesting homeworld-inspired premise where effectively this is kind of like a single-player version of Guard the Cart from TF2. The only difference is you're way out in space, you've got battle cruisers, you have the ability to spawn fighters and carriers and stuff like that. There's side objectives that happen inside each of the systems while you're there. You can decide whether or not you want to respond to them or if you just want to leave. And this was kind of one of those curious titles that came out of nowhere while I was crawling Steam oh so long ago. I came back to check in on it. It's had 6 major updates since the last time that we played the game. They've added full-on RTS controls, which is something that I suggested the last time we checked the game on out, because this is one of those games that, like, wants you to control the fighters, but also control the fighters. So, like, this is one of those games where you can jump straight into, like, the cockpit, and you can fly the ships around if you want, or you can play it like an RTS. When it first came out, there was no way to control your units. It was basically like an auto-battler. They've added a full-on RTS system now, and so that's prompted me to come back in and check the game out, especially since the game is sitting at 50% positive reviews, and the fact that there have been no reviews of this game in a year. No one's reviewed it on Steam. Like, the last review is from, like, October 2022, I think. At least when I was scanning. I didn't use all the filters, though, so maybe my Steam was just displaying weird. So I figured we'll do some updated coverage, we'll check the game out, we'll see if it's something you like, I'll give some more suggestions as to what I think the game can do to get better. I do think that it's on a good trajectory from its release. I do think it's a little addle-brained, though, and I do think it's a little bit scattered, like it feels like the game has a little bit of an identity crisis. But let's dive on in. If after watching this you wanted to get the game for yourself, I got a link for you down below in the description. You can check that on out. On top of that, you can also take a look down there and you'll find a link to my Discord and my Twitch stream, just in case you wanted to hang out live every single day of the week. Things are a little scattered with the holiday season. I'm always in and out of town right now, but we'll get back to a normal schedule at some point. So this is the game proper, and I think the first thing that's going to hit you right square in the jaw is that the game has a very shiny, very sort of industrial, very blocky sort of look to it, and that works really well for me because I prefer my spaceships blocky. I don't like it when they're all like aerodynamic and whatnot flying through space. I tend to prefer it when all my spaceships look like big hunks of metal shoeboxes that are flying around. This is the first map, and on every single map you're going to have resources. For example, like these ores right here. One of your prevailing objectives for every single map is to mine every single one of the asteroids. These little guys right here are your miners. Fair point in this game is that you can click on any unit and take control of it at any time, so if I wanted to go mine, I can go mine right now if I wanted to do exactly that. I've actually abandoned controlling ships entirely for playing the game like an RTS because I've found that the game is fast-paced enough that if you're flying a ship around actively fighting, you can't really keep an eye on like the overall macro situation of the battlefield very well. And so I've just abandoned it and I don't use the ship control at all. I play this basically like an RTS. So here come our first invaders. We're being attacked. We need to do something about that. I'm going to go ahead and we're just going to buy a big old mess of Hornets right there because they're shooting down all of my little miners. And as you can see, there goes all my little fighters, and they're going to instantaneously engage, and they're going to start getting rid of the enemy flyers. Now, what is the goal of this game? Goal of this game is pretty simple. You've just got to defend the mothership. That's it. The mothership throughout the game is going to go from basically teleportation spot to teleportation gate. And that's it. You just got to go wormhole to wormhole while trying to balance your economy and also making sure that you don't get absolutely drilled into an asteroid. At any time, you can press the M key. That's going to give you the new RTS control mode. If we look around, so we've got an enemy right there. But if we look around, we can actually grab some of these little dudes over here, and we can go run them down real fast. What is that? What's happening right here? What is this? Yeah, go ahead and defend that guy, I guess. But we do have like a big target coming on in that seems to want the smoke. So let's go ahead and drop one out of that mode right there. And we're just going to want to grab like a couple dragons because they kill big ships. A couple little ship killers. couple little ship killers, and off and away they go. You can see them going to engage. Their payload is out. The game is very explosive. It's got lots of cool effects every time you shoot an enemy. It feels like an enemy got shot with like a bomber. When they blow up, ships leave big debris fields that just stay there and persist. And so you get like kind of this cool organic effect in this game, where as you play longer, the different areas where you engage with the enemy always end up having big debris fields all over the place that you're like now fighting in and amongst, which I think is sort of one of those emergent things that I've come to actually like about the visual presentation of this game. It's kind of a quiet game. You're not going to hear a whole lot of sound effects. I suppose if you're into realism, you could probably chalk that up to just kind of like in space, there's no sound. But there are actually sound effects. It's just usually you're too far away from the action to actually hear what's going on. It looks like our fleet is doing a pretty good job right now, and when our ship arrives at this jump gate, it's going to ask us if we're ready to leave or not. We're not. I want to farm a little bit more. This button right here is for building a refinery. I'd also like to build some mules. Mules are repair ships that will fly around and repair anybody that's damaged in their free time. But for right now, we need a refinery. The refinery allows you to have a drop-off point for your ore that's not attached to the side of your mothership. You can also click and choose this guy, and you can give him orders like what rock you want him to focus on from inside of this menu right here, and he'll go ahead and do that. For now, I think we're probably just going to farm a little bit, and we're going to wait and see. We've got 1 minute left in defending the civilians, which are these ships right here. They're going to leave the system in just a second, but they need us to defend them for now. Looks like we've got another big ship coming on in. I can do something about that. I'm going to go ahead and start getting us a couple of carriers. This guy right here is a carrier, so it's going to sporadically spawn fighters like you saw right there, and it's just going to reinforce various points inside the system. That's it. This guy is actually a really good free fire solution to not having to micromanage, and so I tend to build them pretty frequently because it means I don't need to babysit all my carriers and everything else. Are you guys actually like helping out over here? It feels like things are a little scattered at the moment. Everybody priority target over here, priority target over there. Like, I feel like my fleets are all over the place right now. Obviously, the big ship that's hucking thermonuclear warheads at us is probably the one that we want to get rid of. There we go. I don't really care if we have losses. This is kind of like a spectacle game, a la something like Dynasty Warriors, where worrying about losses should probably not be your big focus. You should probably focus if it gets called out over here on the left and it adds in an icon when you spawn it. It's probably something you don't want to lose at one point or another, but for right now, we just want to stay tight. We want to stay strapped. We've evacuated 10 out of 11 of the civilians, and we just want to farm up a little bit of ore. One little adjustment I would like to see is, unfortunately, unit control is a little bit scattered in this current build. There's no way to itemize and figure out how much of each ship you have, or even what's on your clicker right now. Like, when I go like that, I don't get like an itemized list of every unit that's on in here. Now, this is going to be controversial, but my suggestion is they get rid of the real-time aspects of the game altogether. What I mean by that is I don't think it's that important that we be able to control each and every ship in the game. The movement there is floaty, it's clunky, and to me it feels like it's probably going to take development way too much time to get that sorted out. We should probably jump. That's a pretty big ship, and it's popping holes in our hull. It's probably going to take way too much development to get every single ship feeling good in space. I've flown around with some of the ships. They all feel pretty clunky. They all feel pretty slidey. Ship control is not so great. Most of the weapons function via lock-on rather than any type of free shooting because there's no kind of like lead targeting reticle or anything else implemented as the game stands right now. I would lean heavier, personally, into the RTS direction and actually add like a full-on push pause and just start developing it as though it's an RTS. Because as of right now, I think the game is a much better RTS than it is kind of like an action shooter. And I think that that would simplify development a little bit and get it going a little bit faster. I'm just going to kind of like diversify kind of like the ships that I have for right now. And we'll bring in, I think, a couple paladins as well. We'll get a couple of our first big ships right there that you can see flying around because this fight's going to engage pretty quickly. So let's get moving. But that's just my thoughts about the game, having played it now for an hour or two, is that I think it makes a much better RTS, like with a free roaming camera basically for like spectacles and screenshots and stuff like that than it does an actual flying, shooting, dogfighting game. The dogfighting part of it feels very, very undercooked and very underproved and very underbaked as of right now. It feels like a tack-on that's just kind of there for like the novelty. And I couldn't help but thinking as I was playing this, like, damn, if I had a push pause right now, like if I could just hit space real fast, pause everything up, like itemize what units I have and start microing, dude, like this is actually something I could see myself getting really addicted to, especially since the developer has said that this campaign mode, which kind of goes through like 8 systems, this campaign mode is also getting an endless mode, like a roguelike mode, basically, which got all kinds of juices flowing inside my brain for how you could give this a lot of replayability and how you could make it stand the test of time. I'll kind of like itemize those, I guess, at the end of the video for right now. It wants me to destroy that. Why does it want me? Oh, there's a bunch of them, huh? All right. Well, there's a lot of things that I have to fight right now, but I'll try. Go ahead and get him real fast. We'll try to get some of these, like, side objectives. I don't know if we get money for killing them or like what's gonna happen there. I do like the start colors that they've used right here for like a lot of the, I guess all of the icons here, like while you're flying around. Like I really like what they've done with the colors. They're very sharp. Like they stand out very well to the eye when it comes to like unit designations and what you're telling people to do in like a given engagement. That guy's spinning around right there. I don't know if we'll like get the secondary objective done because these dudes are running away like crazy. And so like chasing them all over the galaxy seems like it's probably going to be a little bit complicated. For right now, let's get a few more slingshots, I guess. These are long-range artillery ships. Another reason is all of these ships have, another reason I wanted the push pause is because all these ships have like descriptions and very specific things they're good and like bad against. And it's hard to figure that out in the heat of the moment when you're like losing miners and you're trying to like micromanage units and fly them all over the place. And so anyways, that's another reason why the push pause I think would be really, really helpful right there. It does look like they are, oh, they wiped out all of the optional targets. Nice. You can see the slingshots engaging over here. Their missiles are indeed away. Did I just get shot by my own missiles over here? Okay, so you guys should not be firing at a fighter. You guys are big ships, which means firing your guns at a fighter is probably a waste of your time. They're like bombing themselves out right now. All the mules can get repairs going. I'm sorry, all the camels. The camels are the ones that do the repairs. There's a lot of mining resources on this map. So I think if we can get a few more refineries out and running, I would not be like, that'd be really, really good for getting the economy really humming. And as you can see, each of these refineries, I think, is going to come with its own miners. I think. I don't know. I haven't really tested it out, I suppose. I don't know if you're like limited on the amount of like mules that you're allowed to have at any given time, or if each one of these gets like its own mule set. Either, oh, that's a big ship right there, dude. Look at that big old hunk of metal. Let's see what he does against my fighters and my bombers, though. My fleet is growing shockingly large compared to like Op4 here, so we might be okay. So it looks like they're skirmishing right now. Lots of lasers flying around. Lots of chaos happening. Lots of death. I see a whole lot of red going up on the kill counter. We have our first bombardment away from all of our missile slingshots right there. You can see them impacting. It looks like they've sprung a couple of leaks from the hull. I think this big guy's going down, man. I think he's going down. He's looking a little bit over. So, nice explosion right there. Make it feel good deep down inside. I really honestly don't know if I need this many refineries. We've gotten to the point now where our infrastructure is strong enough that we're strip mining pretty quickly out here. So these guys are burning down asteroids at a very, very rapid pace. It looks like our economy is actually like humming right now too, so I think it'll be all right. Observations are we just need to get our cash up. I think this farming phase of the game could probably be streamlined a little bit. Like, I don't know exactly how you could do it, but I don't know if, like, sitting at the gate like this is really like an intended mechanic where you're just supposed to, like, sit here. Yeah, you probably want to reroute fleet. We're about to lose refineries, man. Refineries are pricey. To just let a battleship sit on top of them and cause us a bunch of headaches. Go ahead and deploy the entire fleet over here to go ahead and kill those things, dude. Looks like we lost some swordfishes in there, so I'll go ahead and replace them real fast. There we go. We'll replace them with like double what we had. Almost lost 2 refineries because this guy came in from crossways around the galaxy. But sitting at the gate farming for a little while feels like one of those things that's kind of like a clunky, unintended consequence. I feel like there's got to be a way to spice this up and make it interesting, like giving the players some kind of control of the mothership. Like, do you want to go to the mining area, or do you want to make advancement time towards the gate? Like, so you basically have like a railway track that runs through here, and there'd be like a mining area over there, and you could decide to break the mothership off and go get it. There might be like another side objective over here that has like a text dialogue pop-up thing where you have to resolve some sort of like sci-fi situation. Little things like that to add a little bit more flavor and sauce to the game, I guess. Oh, wow, dude. Is that one of my swordfishes right there? I don't know, because it doesn't tell me what I have clicked when I click on the thing that I'm clicking. So I don't even know what unit I'm looking at half the time. Definitely something I think they're going to want to get sorted out. There's plenty of resources left on this map, but for the interest of this impressions video, let's go ahead and jump to the next station, because there's not just one enemy type that we're going up against. So the maps are randomized. You never know quite what you're going to get, or what kind of system you're going to end up inside of. Sometimes you're like inside the alien bowel of the beast, and there's weird things that you can't really describe going on. Sometimes you're fighting against just like red guys that seem to really dislike you and the society that you purport to love. I don't know. Let's go ahead and we'll get a whole bunch more healers. We're going to have to replace some slingshots. So there's like 4 of them. We need like 4 more carriers. We have enough money to where we can drop a Paragon carrier. And I think that would be a nice little come up, so I'm going to do it. Where's the Paragon at? Ooh, there he is, dude. Look at the size of him. That's the big ship right there. That's what I like to see. What does the Paragon spawn? Like, does he spawn bombers? Oh, he just spawns free strike craft. That's all. He just sits there and spawns fighters. Gotcha. Well, I mean, if it takes some micro off of me, I'm okay with it. He's just like a bigger version of those smaller carriers that we already had. Ah, yes. The Spacey Beast. That thing right there definitely does not want to be our friend. And this is not the only type of alien in the game either, actually. I was kind of surprised. I played the game for a couple hours prior to the recording of this video. There's a couple different alien races you come across. There's like these hostile space whales or like space sharks. There's these guys right here. There's like these floating eyeball things. There's like a bunch of little random aliens that you come across that have their own dedicated zones, which are kind of interesting. I don't know. It says that there's 11 resources right here. But I don't know, man. We appear to be throwing down pretty hard with that guy. And as long as we can keep all of the enemies sort of like pinned where he's at, I think that'd be good. Another good quality of life thing here is when you double click on any of the names of these major ships up here, it should automatically grab your camera and take you to them like super fast so that you can quickly get to like locations where things are happening. So far the zone's been going pretty well. This has actually been a lot easier than what they were throwing at us in the previous zone, because a lot of these aliens, they have to actually chew on the hull of your ship in order to deal damage, and so it hasn't really been that big of an issue dealing with them. They don't really have ranged attacks. When you're dealing with like the random human factions that are trying to fight with you, they tend to have the same artillery capacity and the ability to nuke from long range and like spawn fighters and things like that that you can. But look at our fleet. Look at the size of it. Almost gives you kind of like Ender's Game vibes, the way that they sort of like orb around the central mothership just to keep an eye on them. Sort of cool, man. It's one of those games that I'm really conflicted on, because there's some really, so there's a jumbled mash of ideas here that are wrapped up inside like a really beautiful candy coating of visuals. They've got the spectacle aspect about it down. I just can't help but feel like the game may have a little bit of like an identity crisis, and it may be trying to mix too many ideas together at once. I mean, because what's not awesome about this? You know what I mean? Like, look at what you're looking at right now. This is objectively sick. Like, this is actually dope to watch and, like, cool to take part in and actually understand that, like, you made this happen. You know what I mean? Like, this entire giant battle fleet is all you as they're tackling giant squid monsters in space. Just like that, we're out of the zone. Let's go ahead and take a jump on into the next area. And I'm going to do my best, because I get the feeling that this is going to take me a couple minutes. I'm going to do my best to put together my thoughts about this game. But first I want to spawn a Titan. There you go. There's the guy right there. Oh, that's the big boy ship right there. Oh. Oh, that's the good stuff. All right. Anyways, I just wanted to mess around with the Titan for a second. But this is Lost Fleet. So here's the thing. Like, Lost Fleet isn't there yet. I'll just say it right up front. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There's a general lack of clarity and focus to this game that I think are actually keeping it from moving units in a big way sales-wise. But I do think that if you compare the game's bones now to the build that we took a look at a year ago, they have showed improvement along all of the roads, lines, and train tracks that I recommended. And so the AI is much better. It's not flawless, but it does take initiative much better than it used to. The presentation and graphics are still fantastic. The lighting effects look good, and the game begs you to love it on a visual level. Leaving a system littered with debris fields, destruction, it all feels and looks amazing. The ships look really good. I like the models. Actually, I think the ships in this game are really attractive. So that's also nice to look at, especially once you get them fleeted up and super huge. Where I run into issues is that the game seems to be a little bit scatterbrained with regards to its intended identity. This game is trying to wear too many suits at once. It's trying to be a flight sim, a management game, a real-time strategy game, and because of that, I think it sort of has to throw things out that it does well, that it could focus on just to support the things that it doesn't do well and keep them folded inside the content. And so on the good side, the improvements here with the RTS mechanics is significant. It's not enough, but it's significant. It's difficult, for example, to tell what units you have, what units you're losing, what units you're selecting, or have already selected. These are all things that could be fixed by having the unit types represented by icons on both their unit cards when you purchase them and on the tactical map, a la something like Sins of a Solar Empire or something like AI War 2, I think would be another really good reference for that one. Push pause would also assist really heavily here, and honestly, I consider push pause to be a required thing for RTSs nowadays. It's just a really useful thing to have in any single-player game. If there's multiplayer, obviously leave it out, but with like a single-player campaign, you should definitely be able to push pause. Enemy flights of ships often jump in right in front of you or out of sight, and they take time to track down, and by that time, you followed the arrow visually to figure out where they're at. They've blown up one of your refineries. Once selection, identification, and representation of units is handled, they can add further depth. I also think like a mini-map that shows the track that your mothership is moving on, along with possible branches maybe to add some extra depth, almost Star Fox 64 style would be a really good idea here. But for now, I would consider scuttling the entire notion of piloting ships for the sole reason that I don't think I've ever seen an RTS combine satisfying shooter gameplay in a way that felt as good as a dedicated shooter game. A lot of games have tried it, and I don't think any have ever really done it superbly well, although I'm open to being convinced if you have a favorite game that did that. Because this is a small developer, I don't think... So, like, the reason I would throw this out actually comes from a really logical nuts and bolts place. Because this is a small team, I don't think that they have time to balance and test the flight model for 40 different ships to a satisfying extent. Also, I don't think that it's a great use of their time. It doesn't add much to the game, and the strategy gameplay is impossible to follow anyways while you're piloting a ship, which leads to losses and you losing track of the greater macro play. So just, like, cut it. It doesn't need to be there. It's like a sixth finger. You know what I mean? Like, you've got RTS gameplay that you could have been focusing on for the last year, but this flight model stuff is kind of clogging up the pipes. Let's get the water flowing. From there, we have to kind of hope that with the implementation of the intended endless roguelike mode that the game is developing right now to release, we're hoping that that adds a shot of depth, because as of right now, for me personally, this game is mostly just amassing a giant fleet stack, and then you kind of step back and watch the chaos. That's entertaining for probably 2 to 3 hours, at which point the spectacle is going to kind of wear off, and that's when you want a few layers of cake inside the game to bite down into, some more meat on its bones, to get you wanting to watch that spectacle more. So purchasable upgrades for the ships, mods that drop randomly when you complete side objectives, sorting the ships into weight classes like fighter, frigate, so on and so forth, that those mods correspond to, with almost like a Diablo-style quality system to give them OP combinations or additions to their abilities, randomized artifacts that come up, Binding of Isaac style, that all interact with one another and buff the HP, stats, firing rate, turn rate, the way that your shots interact from all of your various classes of ships. That kind of stuff for both the enemies and allies would incentivize certain ship usage types on various runs, and it would also incentivize the cultivation of synergies that it would need for another few layers of gameplay that are deeper than what it has right now, which is basically like print out a bunch of ships and watch explosions. For the moment, I think that if this was the first build of the game published, I would say that it's really, really promising. Not so much a year into early access, but credit where credit is due. A lot of my earlier complaints about the game from my last video have been worked on, which leads me to a hopeful place that feedback is still being taken into account, because I think the potential here is massive if the game gets the love and care it needs, and more importantly, I think professionally that this game is like actually close. If it focuses on being just one thing rather than trying to be a bunch of different things, it's being stymied right now by trying to wear too many hats at once, I think, to be stylish in any of them. And I think trying to wear all those hats is keeping it from dancing very well on the dance floor either without any of them falling off. You know, the metaphor just keeps flowing. So anyways, there's a lot of work still to be done here, but I do think they've improved since the last time we covered the game. I noticed the title hadn't had a review done in a really, really long time. I think it was like one negative review from like the last X amount of months. And so I figured I would update my coverage. This is Lost Fleet. My name is Splattercat. I sift through the pile to find what's worthwhile in the world of indie games every single day so you don't have to. Tomorrow I'll be back with something else, but today we are dunzos. Catch y'all later. Bye, folks.